3 days. Lu Feng stared at the intense battle in the arena and murmured. On the first day, the 12 students were brutally beaten by Bao Yi and his group. On the second day, they were already able to fight them for dozens, even hundreds of exchanges. By the third day, they could engage in desperate, life-risking combat with Bao Yi's group without a clear winner. "Hey, your method is actually quite effective." A soft voice came from behind. It was Nicola Shui, who had just stepped off the training field. Without turning his head, Lu Feng said, "During training, call me coach." Nicola Shui pouted unhappily and rolled her eyes at his thin figure, unable to understand how such a seemingly frail body could contain such terrifying power. She brushed aside a strand of purple hair and stepped forward, bringing a faint fragrance with her. Standing beside him, she tilted her head and stared at his ordinary-looking face. "Have we met before?" Lu Feng finally reacted. The corner of his lips lifted slightly. "Yes, we have." Her purple eyes lit up. "Where? You look familiar, but I just can't remember." Lu Feng turned to her, staring into her mesmerizing eyes with a cold smile. "Do you really want to know?" A sense of unease rose in her heart, but curiosity pushed her to nod. Lu Feng leaned closer, his lips near her smooth ear. His warm breath made her blush, but his next words froze her completely. In that small adventurer town, inside the tavern, the black-haired youth whose dignity you trampled underfoot. Remember now? A cold light flickered in his dark eyes. Nicola Shui's body stiffened. A sentence she had never forgotten echoed in her mind. "Today's humiliation I will repay tenfold in the future." Her face dimmed. She bit her lips so hard that blood appeared, forcing a bitter smile. "Then, are you here to take revenge?" Lu Feng remained silent for a long moment. Then he suddenly smiled lazily, stretching. He gently wiped the blood from her lips with his pale fingers, then turned and walked toward the exit. "If I really wanted revenge, I'd just drag you into some corner," he chuckled. "Would you even be able to resist? Consider what happened before as me venting my anger. From now on, we owe each other nothing." His blunt words made her blush deeply. "Shameless jerk," she muttered. But as she touched her lips, still warm, she suddenly felt an impulse and ran after him. Lu Feng looked at her blocking his way, arms outstretched, and rubbed his nose. He stepped forward without hesitation. Nicola Shui retreated until her back hit the wall. Lu Feng pressed her firmly against it, teasing, "What, Miss Nicola, are you really planning to let me—" It was her first time being this close to a man. His presence made her face flush red, her body stiff. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry about that time. I was too impulsive." Lu Feng was momentarily stunned, then broke into a bright smile. She herself didn't understand why she had come to apologize so sincerely. If her family saw this, they would never believe it. Lu Feng nodded slightly. "I accept your apology. From now on, we're even." He paused, then added with a smile, "And when you're gentle like this, you're really beautiful." He let her go and walked away lazily. "Oh, and tell the others they can rest this afternoon, but training resumes tomorrow." Nicola Shui nodded lightly, watching his figure disappear into the darkness. Then she smiled softly. "You made me this miserable. How could we possibly be even?" Today was the 4th day. The Grand Duke and Ao He, the 2 rulers of the sun-never-set city, finally came to observe the training, but after just 10 minutes, both quickly found excuses and left. Lu Feng clearly noticed the Grand Duke seemed to be trembling as he walked away. As for Ao He, he gave Lu Feng a big thumbs up and shouted, "Brother Yu, I really admire you." Lu Feng just shrugged with a faint smile. Leaning lazily against the wall with a blade of grass in his mouth, he let its bitter taste spread as his gaze wandered aimlessly. Meanwhile, Nicola Shui felt unusually distracted today. Her eyes drifted and stopped on that thin figure leaning against the wall. She lost focus, but her opponent, rough and merciless, did not hesitate. Taking advantage of her distraction, a massive fist came crashing down with fierce force. Only then did she react, but it was too late. Closing her eyes, she prepared to take the blow. Suddenly, her waist tightened as a pair of arms wrapped around her. The wind howled past her ears. Opening her eyes, she saw familiar black hair. Her struggle weakened. Looking at those angry, dark eyes, she said weakly, I just wasn't paying attention." Lu Feng raised a brow coldly. "Do you think beastmen will wait for you to focus before attacking?" She pursed her lips, not daring to reply. he sighed, stepping lightly and landing with her on the ground. Go again. If you lose focus again, don't bother eating lunch. She watched his retreating figure, pouting in grievance. Such a strict guy, doesn't understand gentleness at all. From above, Lu Feng watched her return to form and nodded in satisfaction. His gaze swept across the arena. Today, driven by the promise of freedom, Bao Yi and his group had become even more ferocious. They fought like madmen, abandoning all defense, leaving only relentless attacks. Lu Feng stroked his chin, eyes flickering. These guys are actually pretty good. It seems he was already planning something new. Day 5, the final day of training. From being completely crushed on the first day to now turning the tables, the growth of the 12 trainees was anything but small. After all, their base strength was already solid. Although Bao Te and his group initially achieved great results through their rich combat experience and their life-for-life fighting style, as time passed and the trainees gradually adapted to this brutal combat method, they began to counterattack. The gap between 7th tier and 8th tier was enormous, even though Bao Te and Bao managed to narrow that gap with their exceptional experience. Over time, Nicolas Shu and the other 3 rapidly closed it again. Now, the ones being beaten down had become Bao Te and Bao instead. Bao San and the others fared slightly better. The gap between 6th tier and 7th tier was smaller, so when facing the 8th 7th tier trainees, they could still maintain an undefeated record, though their counterattacks were somewhat weak. Bao Te retreated from the arena in a sorry state, casting a sympathetic glance at Bao who was about to step in, before slumping onto a stone bench. Receiving that look, Bao shrugged and returned a knowing smile. Bao Te rolled his eyes helplessly and sighed as he watched the fierce battle in the arena. A ghost-like figure suddenly appeared behind him, accompanied by a soft chuckle. "How's it going, Bao Te?" Startled, Bao Te's body tensed as he quickly turned around, looking at Liu Feng, who stood there smiling. So fast, just like they said, like a ghost. Anyone who became his enemy would never know peace. Bao Te had survived on the brink of death for years and had developed extremely sharp instincts. Normally, anyone entering within 2 meters of him would be detected, but Liu Feng had approached silently without him noticing at all. How could he not be shocked? Seeing Bao Te's stunned expression, Liu Feng repeated his question. Sir, they're very strong. I think Bao and I can no longer pose a real threat to them, and they've gradually learned how to fight like it's life and death," Bao Te replied quickly. Liu Feng nodded with satisfaction, then casually asked, "Bao Te, what do you plan to do after you leave here?" Bao Te shook his head in confusion and gave a bitter smile. "I don't know yet, but I really want to go out and breathe the air of freedom." His face flushed slightly as he continued. "Sir Liu Feng, please allow me to thank you on behalf of myself and my brothers. If we hadn't met you, we would probably have stayed here in this death arena, waiting for a brutal end." Liu Feng smiled and waved it off. "No need to thank me. I have my own reasons too. But if you don't have anywhere to go after leaving, I can introduce you to a place." Bao Te nodded. "Please, go on." "I have some friends who are planning to upgrade their mercenary group to A rank. They're short on people. If you don't mind, you can go help them. Of course, if you don't want to, I won't force you." Bao Te lowered his head in thought. After a while, he nodded firmly. "All right, since you've invited us, it would be ungrateful to refuse. After we leave, I'll bring my brothers to join them. Consider it repaying your kindness." Relieved, Liu Feng nodded with a smile. "If you're not satisfied there, you're free to leave any time. I won't stop you." Bao Te grinned. "Thank you, sir." In the vast training ground, 12 figures stood upright, staring at the lazy young man in white before them. Looking at them, now vastly different from 5 days ago, Liu Feng nodded slightly, the blade of grass between his lips swaying gently. "All right, training ends here. Do whatever you want next. I have something to do, so I'm leaving. You're all grown. Surely you can find your way back." With that, Liu Feng turned lazily and walked toward the exit with Bao Te and the others. Watching his figure disappear into the tunnel, the group exchanged helpless smiles. "Our instructor really is something else. After we worked so hard, he didn't even bother to say a single word of praise." Lan Sang sighed. "Yeah, definitely not normal." Gangsa shrugged, then grinned mischievously.
To celebrate finishing this hellish training, how about we treat the instructor to a night at UA Tower? A cold gaze shot over from behind, making goosebumps rise on Gangsa's skin. He turned around awkwardly. Nicolas Shu was staring at him icily. You can go if you want. Don't drag the instructor into such a filthy place, she said coldly. Everyone froze in surprise. The Ice Queen speaking up for the demon instructor? Something was definitely going on. Lan Sang coughed and said with a teasing tone, Nicolas Shu, don't you tell me you've fallen for the instructor? No wonder he asked. Nicolas Shu was not only beautiful, but from a powerful family. She was the dream woman of countless ambitious men. Everyone gasped. The ice goddess of Stinglan Academy in love? Her classmates were most shocked. If the guys back at the academy found out, it would cause an uproar. Nicolas Shu's face flushed red. She stomped her foot and quickly denied. What nonsense are you talking about? Just helping Junior Wei keep an eye on her boyfriend. The group inhaled sharply. Wei? You mean that saint student personally accepted by your dean? Where? Lan Sang asked in disbelief. Gangsa stroked his chin and sighed. Damn, the instructor's incredible. Even someone like that? He got her? I need to learn from him someday. A timid voice asked, How do you know the instructor and that Wei girl are in that kind of relationship? You only just met him, right? All eyes turned back to Nicolas Shu, waiting for more shocking gossip. But at that question, she froze. Deep in her mind, a memory surfaced. A small tavern, a black-haired young man softly reciting, In this life, I will cross 10,000 mountains, not for the next life, but just to meet you along the way. A beautiful girl smiled happily beside him. A sudden irritation surged in Nicolas Shu's heart. She shoved aside the person in front of her and said coldly, I don't know. If you want to know, go ask the instructor yourself. The group watched her graceful figure disappear around the corner, exchanging confused shrugs.
At the southern city gate of Sun Never Sets, a few days earlier, Liu Feng had seen Bao Te and his group off from this very place. With a faint smile, Liu Feng took out the magic contract Maya had given him from his spatial ring. Right in front of Bao Te and the others, he personally burned it to ashes. Watching the contract turn into specks of light and disappear, Bao Te and the other 5 felt their eyes redden. Their dark faces flushed with excitement. Taking a step back, the 6 men bent their iron-like waists deeply toward Liu Feng. Raising his head, Bao Te said in a deep voice, If you ever need us, we will risk our lives to help. Liu Feng smiled and nodded. You're free now. Don't force yourselves just because of me. Bao Te grinned and nodded. Without hesitation, he bowed once more, then turned and left with his brothers. Watching them walk out of the city gate, laughing loudly side by side, Liu Feng felt a trace of relief. Freedom, such a simple word, yet sometimes it takes a life to pursue it. A bitter smile appeared on his lips. Shaking his head, he cast aside such profound thoughts and lazily turned around. His gaze swept slightly upward and stopped on a graceful purple figure standing atop the city wall. He paused briefly, then walked up slowly. Nicole Lachey stood quietly at the top of the wall. The vast grasslands stretching endlessly into the distance gradually soothed her troubled heart. She couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Why did I lose my temper for no reason? That cold face with black pupils suddenly flashed in her mind. Her hand trembled slightly. Why did it have to be him? The one I once humiliated. He must hate me deeply. Where is really so lucky? Hey, girl, I need to clean this wall. Are you jumping down or not? A lazy voice pulled Nicole Lachey back to reality. Hearing such strange words, she couldn't help but laugh softly. She turned gracefully, tilted her head slightly, and looked at the figure leaning lazily against the wall not far away. What if I really jumped? She asked with a smile. Seeing her suddenly radiant beauty, more dazzling now that all her defenses seemed gone, Liu Feng sighed inwardly. A king might abandon his empire just for a smile like that. Rolling his eyes, he found such girlish topics amusing and shrugged. Then jump. Nicole Lachey frowned slightly, thinking for a moment before shaking her head. You wouldn't save me, would you? Maybe, deep down, you'd actually wish I jumped. Liu Feng raised an eyebrow. Nicole Lachey grew annoyed. She had only said it casually, yet he didn't deny it. Biting her lip, she asked angrily, So you wouldn't save me anyway? Liu Feng nodded with a faint smile. Then why are you still standing here? Seeing her aggrieved expression, Liu Feng suddenly found it interesting. His figure flickered, appearing on the battlement just a few meters away from her. We don't really have any relationship, so why should I save you? Faced with such blunt words, Nicole Lachey could only glare at him, her chest rising and falling with emotion. After a quick glance, Liu Fang looked away, not because he wasn't interested, but because he feared he might not be able to resist the temptation. He coughed lightly, changing the topic. Can you tell me something about where? Nicole Lachey's heart skipped a beat. That irritating feeling surged up again. She looked at Liu Fang, his expression calm, but his dark eyes clearly hiding urgency, and felt even more annoyed. Her face returned to its usual coldness. She entered the academy not long ago and was soon taken in as the dean's personal disciple. Even I rarely get to see her. Oh, Liu Fang nodded slightly, unable to hide the disappointment in his eyes. You know a girl named Fair, right? Yes, Liu Fang coughed awkwardly. Nicole Lachey snorted coldly. So you're just a playboy after all. You already have Ware and you're still flirting around. Ware's too gentle to care, but if it was someone else... Liu Fang frowned again. Again, that tone. He took a deep breath, his voice turning colder. That's enough. He turned to leave, then paused. His voice was icy. Don't go whispering nonsense in Ware's ear. She's innocent, unlike you. Watching his figure disappear in a few flashes, Nicole Lachey felt her nose sting, bit her lip tightly, feeling deeply aggrieved by his last words. What do you mean, whispering nonsense? I was just telling the truth, and you treat me like this? She kicked the stone beside her in frustration, unable to understand herself. She knew certain words would anger him, yet she still couldn't stop herself from saying them. When Liu Fang returned to the courtyard, his emotions had already settled, and he regained his usual calm. He walked in quietly. A small red figure immediately came into view. Behind her, on the stone table, a golden little dragon lazily rolled around, basking in the warm sunlight. Hong Yi was sitting cross-legged in meditation. Wisps of white mist rose from the back of her neck. Her small face trembled slightly as if she were enduring something painful. Liu Fang watched for a moment and was suddenly shocked. The girl was actually trying to forcibly condense energy. He hurried forward, placing his palm on her back, sending a surge of powerful true qi into her body. Inside Hong Yi, everything was in chaos. Streams of true qi were running wildly, colliding constantly with her fragile meridians. The intense pain she felt came from exactly that. Liu Fang carefully controlled the flow of his own energy, afraid that too much force would damage her meridians and create lasting obstacles on her path to becoming stronger. Fortunately, Hong Yi's true qi originated from his, or rather, Liu Fang's energy was a more refined and complete version of hers. Very quickly, he gathered and stabilized the chaotic energy within her. His powerful qi, mixed with the portion of Hong Yi's own, circulated rapidly through her meridians, expanding and nourishing them. Just as he was about to withdraw, a sudden powerful suction force erupted from her dantian, trying to pull his qi inward. Liu Fang's expression changed drastically. He immediately focused his mind, trying to control the flow. But since this was inside Hong Yi's body, and the force seemed connected to her, he dared not resist too strongly. As the suction grew stronger, he had no choice but to withdraw his consciousness and energy. Opening his eyes, the first thing he saw was Hong Yi's body glowing with flickering red light. That red glow gave him a familiar feeling. It was the same terrifying killing intent he had sensed before. What a strange killing intent. It's actually materializing, Liu Fang muttered in shock. To manifest killing intent physically, that was something only 9th-tier, star-level powerhouses could achieve. Yet the aura inside Hong Yi was this immense. Who exactly is she? And could this be some kind of innate curse? Questions clouded Liu Fang's mind, but with no answers, he could only set them aside for now and focus on her condition. Fortunately, Hong Yi's red light didn't seem to harm her. As it enveloped her completely, her expression gradually calmed, though the glow remained. Liu Fang quietly let out a breath of relief. Sitting cross-legged beside her, he watched her closely without blinking. Time passed quickly. After about an hour, the red glow gradually faded until it disappeared completely. Hong Yi's crimson eyes suddenly opened, a faint purple light flashing within them. She blinked and, seeing Liu Fang before her, revealed a small, happy smile. Liu Fang shook his head helplessly, gently tapping her delicate nose. What happened? He asked. Hong Yi blinked in confusion and shook her head softly. I just followed what you usually taught me. You said there should be a vortex of energy in the dantian for strength to grow, so I tried it. I didn't expect it to turn out like this. Realizing she might have caused trouble, she nervously twisted her fingers together and glanced at him timidly. Liu Fang sighed deeply. This kind of thing should happen naturally. He wanted to scold her, but looking at her pitiable expression, he couldn't bring himself to do it. In the end, he could only roll his eyes in frustration. Seeing his reaction, Hong-yi stuck out her tongue playfully and fluttered her eyelashes. I just wanted to help you a little. See, I'm fine now, aren't I? Her soft, coquettish tone made Lu Feng's shiver all over. He reached out, pulled her into his arms, and placed her gently on his lap. Are you really okay? He asked, still worried. The intimate position made Hong-yi blush deeply. Lu Feng thought she might be having another episode and quickly shook her lightly, repeating the question. She nodded. I'm fine. I just feel stronger. Stronger? Lu Feng raised his eyebrow. Yes, much stronger, she insisted. Lu Feng snorted in disbelief, making her puff up her cheeks in dissatisfaction. Thinking for a moment, she added, stronger than that beast man we saw before. Lu Feng was startled. Are you serious? Hong-yi didn't fully understand strength ranking, so she could only nod uncertainly. Let me check your condition, Lu Feng said, frowning as he took her hand and closed his eyes to examine her body. Feeling the warmth from his hands, Hong-yi quietly lowered her gaze. After a while, Lu Feng suddenly opened his eyes. The vortex in your dantian has formed. Hong-yi blinked in confusion, gripping his clothes tightly. Really? Lu Feng rubbed his head. She hadn't even had time to be happy before his next sentence hit her like a blow. But your vortex is blood red, and its nature is completely different from mine's. My galaxy vortex is stable, pure, and continuous. Yours is filled with killing intent, violent and savage. He continued with a sigh. And your meridians, they're covered in a layer of that same blood red energy. I don't even know what it is. After saying it all in one breath, Lu Feng shook his head again, still confused. So, will it make me stronger? Hong-yi asked anxiously. That is certain, Lu Feng said firmly. It will definitely make you stronger, but whether it's harmful or not, I don't know. The sheer magnitude of that killing intent, it held a terrifying potential. If fully unleashed, even Lu Feng wasn't sure he could handle it. Hong-yi blinked softly, a faint smile appearing on her lips. She buried her head into Lu Feng's chest and murmured silently. As long as I can become stronger, as long as I can help you, even if I become a demon, so what? After carefully checking Hong-yi once again, Lu Feng finally let out a quiet sigh of relief. Although Hong-yi looked full of energy now, no one could be sure whether that red light carried any hidden damage. After examining her, Lu Feng discovered that the strange layer covering her meridians seemed to be gradually strengthening their toughness and resilience. Inside her dantian, that peculiar blood-colored galaxy vortex had begun to stabilize. With each slow expansion and contraction, streams of red energy flowed through her meridians, nourishing her cells and bones along the way. Lu Feng withdrew his spiritual sense and shrugged in confusion. It seemed that Hong-yi had already embarked on a completely different path. It would be better not to continue teaching her internal cultivation methods, in case it harmed her. Let things take their natural course. Looking at Hong-yi's relaxed face in his arms, Lu Feng sighed softly and suddenly said, Hong-yi, get up and try using the energy inside your body. See if you can control it. Hong-yi obediently stood up, tilted her head to think for a moment, then stepped lightly and began moving her hands. She performed the set of Tai Chi movements Lu Feng had taught her. Lu Feng fixed his gaze on her palms, carefully sensing the fluctuations within. As Hong-yi moved her hands, a blood-red vortex suddenly appeared between them, radiating an extremely powerful pulling force. Grass, leaves, and small stones around them were suddenly drawn toward the vortex, but this time, unlike before, instead of sticking to the surface, all the debris was swallowed completely and disappeared. Lu Feng narrowed his eyes, his protective energy automatically activated, blocking the powerful suction. Xiao Jin, who had been sleeping on the stone table, was awakened by the force. It opened its eyes and stared at the strange red vortex in Hong-yi's hands, but its small body remained completely still. Hong-yi clearly felt the energy within the vortex and was delighted. She continued her movements following the Tai Chi form. The power of the vortex grew stronger. Even a tree several meters tall began shedding leaves and fragments, which were sucked into the vortex and vanished. Devouring, Lu Feng muttered with a frown, somewhat shocked. Devouring, what a strange and powerful effect. Is this still the same decorative Tai Chi? Hong-yi, be careful. I'm going to attack the vortex in your hands. Increase its suction to the maximum. If you can't handle it, speak up immediately. Hong-yi agreed, her crimson eyes shining with excitement and curiosity. Lu Feng stepped forward, slightly crouched, and gathered silver-white energy into his right hand. As the light intensified, it condensed into a solid sphere of energy in his palm. Weighing the energy ball slightly, Lu Feng nodded with satisfaction. Normally, he wouldn't use such a wasteful technique, but for testing the devouring ability, it was perfect. With a push of his palm, the energy sphere shot forward toward the vortex. Hong-Yi adjusted her hands, guiding the vortex to meet the incoming sphere. The energy ball collided with the blood-red vortex. At the point of contact, the vortex spun rapidly, trying to devour the sphere, while the sphere resisted at the outer edge, constantly neutralizing the suction. Hong-Yi frowned slightly and increased her strength to the maximum, finally pulling the stubborn sphere into the vortex. As soon as it was swallowed, the vortex began to tremble violently. Silver-white light burst from its core. Feeling the instability, Hong-Yi quickly flung the vortex away. A few seconds after leaving her hands, boom! A violent explosion erupted. The shockwave left the courtyard in chaos, and a huge crater appeared before us. Lu Feng grinned widely and praised her. Looks like getting stronger is no longer a dream. Maybe one day even I won't be your match. Hearing her praise, Hong-Yi stared blankly at her delicate hands, unable to believe that such power had come from her. Seeing her dazed expression, Lu Feng lightly tapped her forehead and laughed. Silly girl, still don't believe me? Hong-Yi raised her face and said clearly, I believe you. Lu Feng shrugged and pointed at the crater. At least you're at a high level now. That devouring power of yours is really strange and terrifying. Looking at her slightly dissatisfied expression, he gently pinched her nose and teased, maybe when you fight someone, you'll suddenly have a little universe explosion and win just like that. Hong-Yi blinked in confusion, clearly not understanding what he meant by a little universe explosion, but seeing him so happy made her feel happy too. Lu Feng laughed and didn't explain further. He caught Xiaojin as it jumped into his arms and smacked its backside lightly. Go sleep over there. Xiaojin felt a sting and wagged its tail pitifully, its eyes welling up with tears. Lu Feng twitched, quickly apologizing and promising it plenty of roasted meat. Only then did Xiaojin happily curl up in his arms and continue sleeping. Hong-Yi, watching Lu Feng's helpless and funny expression, couldn't help but burst into laughter. Her clear laughter echoed through the courtyard, reaching the entrance just as someone arrived. Lan Sheng, should we come here to freeload a meal from the instructor? The young man in the blue robe straightened his collar and said seriously, actually, the instructor is quite gentle. Then why are you pushing me to the front? Lu Feng looked somewhat amused at Lan Sheng and the others, who were standing awkwardly in front of him with forced smiles. Rolling his eyes, he said, you lot, instead of going to eat at the city lord's mansion, you came here? Lan Sheng laughed awkwardly and stepped forward. Well, we just wanted to build a better relationship with you. Besides, during the big battle with the beastmen, you'll be there too, right? Liu Feng smiled faintly and suddenly said something that made Lan Sheng stiffen. Lan Sheng's smile froze, and he nodded awkwardly. The corner of Liu Feng's lips curled slightly as he pointed at each of them one by one. You, the young lord of a grand duke. You, Shijun, second son of the Lion King family of the Changsha Empire. All of you really are high-born young masters with overwhelming power. By the end, Liu Feng smacked his lips and shook his head in mock admiration. He had learned all this information from Al He. When he first found out, even he had been quite shocked. These three, plus Nicola Shui, could practically be considered a crown prince faction. Having their identities exposed so easily, the three could only laugh awkwardly. Liu Feng clearly understood their intention, to build connections. A 9th-rank star-level expert is highly valued in any empire. Being on good terms with such a person would bring great benefits to their families. That was also why, after failing a mission, Hua Hua had tried so hard to curry favor with Liu Feng, even offering a prestigious VIP card. Liu Feng plucked a long leaf and bit it lightly, speaking lazily. I know exactly what you're planning. As long as you don't go overboard, I'll turn a blind eye. Relationships aren't built overnight. They take time. As for what happens in the future, no one knows. The three nodded again, embarrassed. They hadn't even said anything, and their intentions had already been seen through. Liu Feng chuckled, his warm laughter easing the tension. He pointed toward the hall and said, Come on, let's go inside. Otherwise, you'll say this instructor is too stingy to even offer a meal. The three grinned and hurried after him. After eating and drinking their fill, the group relaxed in the courtyard, sipping tea and enjoying the warm sunlight. Liu Feng glanced at Hong-Yi, who was playing with Xiaojin, then at Lan Sheng, who was so relaxed he could barely keep his eyes open. A mischievous smile appeared on Liu Feng's face. Lan Sheng. With a kick, Liu Feng knocked the comfortable mage off his soft chair. What was that for? Lan Sheng complained. I've got a task for you, Liu Feng said with a sly grin. Isn't training already over? Lan Sheng puffed up his chest and protested. Liu Feng glanced at him sideways and smiled faintly. Seeing that Lan Shang was about to suffer, Gongsa and Shi Jun quickly distanced themselves, even chuckling at his misfortune. Lan Shang pulled a long face and raised his hands in surrender. Fine, I'll do it. Liu Feng grinned and gestured toward Hong Yi with his chin. Go test what level she's at. Hearing Liu Feng, Hong Yi stopped playing with Xiao Jin. Her crimson eyes looked over coldly, sending a chill down Lan Shang's spine. Liu Feng narrowed his eyes, thoughtfully. Hong Yi's Tai Chi was no longer the same. Even he couldn't fully understand its changes. But one thing was certain. It was related to the strange red energy in her body. If he tried to explain it, he probably wouldn't understand it himself. With fingers interlocked, Liu Feng said lightly, "Go ahead." He wanted to see just how much Hong Yi's strange blood-colored vortex could devour. Lan Shang didn't quite understand Liu Feng's meaning, but he followed orders. Extending his hand, he waved lightly, and several sharp ice spikes appeared out of thin air. Facing such a young girl, Lan Shang didn't even take out his staff. As an 8th rank expert, he had his pride. If he needed a staff against a little girl, he might as well dig a hole and bury himself. Hong Yi's face remained cold. To strangers, she was like an eternal block of ice. The blood-red vortex appeared again. The sudden vortex and its powerful suction made Lan Shang understand Liu Feng's earlier words. Thanks to days of brutal training, he remained calm despite his shock. Narrowing his eyes, he waved his hand, sending several ice spikes flying forward. Hong Yi moved her hand slightly. The vortex shifted with it, swallowing the ice spikes instantly. Lan Shang was stunned. Gongsa and Shi Jun were watching for entertainment, and they were also shocked. Hong Yi blinked her crimson eyelashes and, imitating Liu Feng, raised her brow slightly in a provocative manner. Her left hand left the vortex, while her right hand alone controlled it. Being looked down upon by a little girl, Lan Shang gave a bitter smile and focused seriously. "Little girl, you asked for it." Hong Yi curled her lips slightly and nodded coldly. The blood-red vortex in her hand grew even larger. Lan Shang calmed himself, his lips moving as he chanted an obscure spell. Cold, magical elements rapidly gathered in his hand. The warm courtyard instantly felt like winter. Frost formed on grass and trees, and snow began to fall. As the ice element increased, the temperature dropped sharply. With the final chant, Lan Shang yelled, "Blizzard!" A massive snowstorm erupted, its power terrifying. A single snowflake sliced past a large tree. Moments later, the tree snapped in half and was shredded into pieces by the storm. Seeing the immense power of the spell, Liu Feng narrowed his eyes and circulated his inner energy, ready to intervene. A red glow flashed around Hong Yi, shielding her from the cold. The vortex spun slightly, then an enormous suction force erupted. The raging blizzard was pulled apart. Snowflakes as hard as steel were sucked into the vortex and vanished without a trace. Liu Feng, reclining on the chair, quietly let out a breath of relief. As for the other two, their eyes were practically bulging out. A 7th rank blizzard spell, even they would need strong battle energy to break it. Yet this little girl had neutralized it so easily. If not for the still spinning blood-red vortex and the stunned Lan Shang, they might have thought it was all a dream. Gongsa coughed dryly and muttered, "What is that thing?" Liu Feng smiled slightly and shrugged. "If I said I didn't know, would you believe me?" Gongsa nodded outwardly, but his expression clearly said, "Do you think I'm an idiot?" Liu Feng could only spread his hands helplessly. In the courtyard, Lan Shang finally snapped out of his daze. Staring at the spinning vortex, he frowned. A flash of light came from his spatial ring, and a large staff appeared in his hand. Gripping it tightly, he felt the surrounding magical elements surge toward him, calming his heart slightly. Seeing this, the two others' expressions changed. They knew Lan Shang well. He rarely used his staff unless he truly acknowledged an opponent. As he once said, "Using my staff carelessly would only disgrace it." Lan Shang placed the staff against his chest and said solemnly, "8th rank water mage, Lan Shang." This was his respect for a worthy opponent. Hong Yi didn't understand such formalities, and even if she did, she probably wouldn't care. She simply nodded lightly. Lan Shang didn't take offense. After all, she was just a young girl. With the wave of his staff, defensive and recovery spells like Water Shield were cast swiftly. "It looks like he's getting serious now. This will be interesting," someone said, watching with excitement. Shang took a deep breath. A faint blue light flickered across his body. His expression turned solemn and serious. With a light wave of his staff, obscure and mysterious incantations were chanted. The surrounding water elements began to stir again, forming a rapidly spinning vortex in front of him. The vortex quickly solidified and started rotating violently. Lansheng did not stop chanting. After a brief pause, he continued with the remaining incantations in an even faster rhythm. Sensing the immense energy contained within the vortex, Hong Yi moved again. The blood-colored vortex in her hands began spinning faster as well. Lansheng focused his mind, lowering his gaze as his chant slowed. Then he shouted softly, "Ice Blade Swarm!" Large numbers of blade-like ice spikes appeared in front of him and shot into the spinning water vortex. As more and more ice blades joined, the edges of the vortex became lined with countless spikes, like saw teeth, rotating rapidly and emitting a low, oppressive humming sound in the air. Liu Feng narrowed his eyes slightly. This magic was a fusion of the water element and its variant, the ice element. Its power was far beyond a simple addition. Any 8th rank expert would find it extremely difficult to deal with this spell. Seeing this, Gangsa's expression changed slightly. He muttered in shock. He even used the profound ice saw spike. Liu Feng blinked in confusion. Profound ice saw spike? I've never heard of that name among standard spells. Noticing his confusion, Gangsa explained in a low voice. It's a self-created spell, one of his signature techniques. With it, he defeated many opponents in the academy and earned his spot in the Beastmen Grand Duel. Liu Feng raised his eyebrow. Self-created magic? This guy really has talent, as expected of the 4 great academies. Then he glanced at Gangsa and chuckled. You guys must have your own hidden techniques too, right? Gangsa didn't deny it, only smiling faintly. Liu Feng shook his head slightly. These people really know how to keep secrets, but then again, so do I. In the field, Hong Yi's expression remained cold. Her blood-red pupils were fixed on the vortex. Her hands moved faster, and the suction force of the blood vortex kept increasing. After completing the final ice blade infusion, Lansheng wiped the sweat from his forehead, pointing his staff at Hong Yi, and shouted, "Go!" The vortex paused briefly, then shot toward Hong Yi at high speed, leaving a blue trail in the air. The ice blades along its edge spun violently. A purple flash flickered in Hong Yi's eyes. Her hands trembled rapidly, leaving faint after-images. Suddenly, she thrust her palm forward. The blood-colored vortex left her hand and rushed toward the incoming attack. Liu Feng raised his brow, astonished. She can release the vortex from her body? Is this still Tai Chi? The two forces collided instantly. The blood vortex's suction surged, pulling in nearby debris, stones, and fragments into its depths. Meanwhile, the water vortex resisted fiercely, its spinning blades shredding anything that entered its range. The two forces tangled mid-air, each trying to devour the other, yet neither could gain the upper hand. Suddenly, the blood vortex contracted. Its suction force spiked dramatically. One by one, the ice blades were ripped out of the water vortex and swallowed into the blood vortex. As the first blades attached, the water vortex weakened. With the balance broken, the blood vortex seized the advantage, devouring more and more of the ice blades. When the final blade was consumed, the water vortex collapsed completely, dissolving into mist and being absorbed. After its victory, the blood vortex trembled violently. Blue magical energy leaked out from within, clashing with the red glow. Then, boom, it exploded midair. The violent shockwave spread downward, threatening to flatten the courtyard. At that moment, a powerful aura suddenly appeared, redirecting the energy upward into the sky. Liu Feng looked up at the blood-red explosion blooming like fireworks. He nodded in satisfaction, withdrew his aura, and instantly returned from an imposing powerhouse to his usual lazy demeanor, leaving the two onlookers behind him staring in confusion. Walking over to the stunned Lansheng, Liu Feng smiled and patted his shoulder. "So, how many spells do you think that blood vortex can handle?" Lansheng came back to his senses and gave a bitter smile. "What a strange ability. Instructor, everyone around you is a monster." Liu Feng glared at him, making Lansheng shrink his neck quickly. Scratching his head, Lansheng continued honestly. "That thing can probably withstand spells around the 8th rank. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's its limit. The spell I used just now was already among the stronger ones in the 8th rank, but since that vortex counters it specifically, I made that judgment." Liu Feng nodded satisfactorily. Lansheng hesitated, then asked, "So what exactly is that blood vortex?" Liu Feng gave a helpless smile. "If I say I don't know, would you believe me?" Lansheng shook his head firmly, his eyes full of disbelief. Liu Feng rolled his eyes, speechless. Turning to Hong Yi, he walked over and gently patted her black hair. "Keep training with that, but be extremely careful. If anything feels wrong, tell me immediately. Got it?" Hearing his concern in his voice, Hong Yi's cold expression melted instantly. She nodded sweetly. Suddenly, a loud voice came from above. "Brother Liu, what kind of commotion are you causing this time?"
Looking up, Liu Zhang saw two figures standing atop a tall tree. Ao Hei, tall and burly, and beside him a graceful girl with flowing purple hair. Liu Feng smiled and cupped his hands. "Sorry, brother, just sparring. Got a bit noisy." Ao Hei laughed. "That level of magical fluctuation is just sparring?" Liu Feng didn't mind the teasing. He glanced at Nicola Shu, nodded politely, but she only snorted coldly and turned away. Shrugging his head, Liu Feng didn't pursue it. Instead, chatted with Ao Hei, who soon became distracted by Xiao Jing and ignored Liu Feng entirely. Liu Feng was speechless. Later, sitting by the stone table, Liu Feng took a sip of tea and asked, "Anything big happening lately?" Ao Hei's expression turned serious. "We've spotted large beastmen forces gathering on the great grassland." Liu Feng was startled. "After the grand duel? Aren't they afraid losing would crush morale?" Ao Hei shook his head. "They're gathering in the northern plains, but haven't made any moves yet. It seems they're waiting for the duel to end." Liu Feng frowned. "Are they that confident they'll win?" Ao Hei sighed. "Who knows? For now, we wait and see. You should prepare too. In a few days, we'll head to the arena." Liu Feng smiled faintly. "I'm looking forward to it."
There were only 4 days left until the grand duel with the beastmen. At last, Liu Feng was able to relax. Every day he would casually stroll through the streets, give some guidance to Hong Yi and Lan Sheng's group, and then run off with Ao Hei to some tavern to drink heartily. Time slipped by quickly without notice. Today was the 4th day. The time for the grand duel with the beastmen was approaching, and the group finally began their journey. There were only 15 core members, 12 from the 4 great academies, plus Ao Hei, Liu Feng, and Hong Yi. Accompanying them were 1,000 heavy cavalry, Ao Tei's private army. For this journey, he had mobilized these elite troops from his side. The large procession marched out from the North Gate in grand fashion. Along the way, crowds gathered to watch and see them off. The outcome of this duel would determine whether war would break out, so the common people were deeply concerned. After all, war is never a good thing for ordinary people, no matter the cause. If it could be avoided, it should be. That was what they all hoped. Riding atop a tall white unicorn horse, Liu Feng shared the saddle with Hong Yi. Looking down at Hong Yi, who kept shrinking into his arms, Liu Feng rolled his eyes helplessly. The killing instinct within Hong Yi was too heavy. Although ordinary people couldn't sense it, the unicorn horse, with its keen perception, was extremely fearful and repelled by such a violent aura. After frightening 3 horses in a row, Liu Feng had no choice but to let her ride with him. Even so, Liu Feng didn't mind. What bothered him was the cold, disdainful gaze from behind that kept falling on his back. Shaking his shoulders uncomfortably again, Liu Feng gave a bitter smile. Turning his head, he looked at the city walls of Neverfall City growing farther and blurrier, and let out a soft sigh. "Hey, Brother Liu, what are you looking at?" Without turning around, Liu Feng knew it was Ao Hei's loud voice. "Nothing, just thinking. Ao Tei sent us these 1,000 cavalry. Doesn't that weaken the city's defenses?" Ao Hei grinned carefreely. "Brother, don't worry. Don't underestimate my big brother because of his rough appearance. His understanding of the beastmen is unmatched. Otherwise, why do you think the beastmen have never taken even an inch of human territory all these years?" Liu Feng nodded slightly. A man who could rise to the position of Grand Duke and hold power for so many years was certainly not someone to be underestimated. "Brother Liu, don't worry. Look, above us," Ao Hei said mysteriously, pointing upward. Liu Sung raised his head but saw nothing. Just as he felt confused, a soft voice came from his arms. "There are 2 eagles in the sky." Both Liu Feng and Ao Hei were startled. Liu Feng was shocked that Hong Yi could see something invisible to the naked eye, 2 magical eagles high in the sky monitoring their group. Ao Hei was shocked that Hong Yi could see the snow eagles flying over 1,000 meters above. Even he could only vaguely detect them. Suppressing his surprise, Ao Hei leaned closer and asked, but Hong Yi only gave him a cold glance, ignored him, and buried her face back into Liu Feng's chest. Embarrassed at being ignored by a little girl, Ao Hei scratched his head and looked to Liu Feng for help. Liu Feng could only return helpless expression. After pestering for a while, Ao Hei finally gave up and rode ahead, shouting loudly. Watching his frustrated figure, Liu Feng chuckled, and then lowered his head and whispered into Hong Yi's ear, "Did you really see them clearly?" Feeling his breath near her ear, Hong Yi's cold face instantly softened. A blush flashed across her face as she nodded shyly. Seeing her nod, Liu Feng frowned slightly and muttered, "Good choice." Then, as if recalling something, he asked again softly, "Have you seen those eagles above our courtyard before?" Hong Yi thought carefully for a moment, then shook her head. "No." "Good." Liu Feng nodded satisfactorily.
He hated being monitored. The feeling of being exposed under someone else's gaze was extremely unpleasant. If Ao Te really intended such surveillance, Liu Feng might actually turn hostile on the spot. The Grand Duel Arena with the Beastmen was located in a large basin in the southern part of the Beastmen Plains. For this duel, a small city was specially built called Warrior City. In Warrior City, you could see all kinds of races, of course, including Beastmen and humans. This city had no lord, no law enforcement, and naturally no laws. It was a city notorious for chaos. Due to its unique location, both the Xinglan Empire and the Beastmen Empire chose to ignore it, as belanding armies deep into the Beastmen Plains just to claim such a small city wasn't worth it, and even if one side took it, they would have to defend against constant magical beast attacks. Because of its uniqueness, the city gradually became a commercial hub. You could find all kinds of strange and rare items here. The merchants here even had an arrogant slogan: "We're not afraid you can't find what you want, only that you can't imagine it." The most profitable businesses in Warrior City were slave auctions and food trade. What the Beastmen lacked most was food. Here, a single sack of grain could be exchanged for a female Beastman slave, showing both the value of food and the low status of such slaves. The Human Xinglan Department officially prohibited trade with the Beastmen, but secretly tolerated it. A sack of grain worth 1 silver coin in human lands could sell for 1 gold coin here, 100-fold profit, enough to drive any merchant mad. Though it was difficult to smuggle food out of the Empire, merchants always found ways. The Empire, though unwilling, couldn't crack down too harshly either, fearing it might give the Beastmen an excuse to start another war. So, as long as the trade wasn't on a massive scale, they turned a blind eye. A unique city formed a unique culture. That was how countless people described Warrior City. The journey from Neverfall City to Warrior City took 3 days. Although they encountered many magical beast attacks along the way, with 1,000 elite cavalry, the group remained safe. The walls of Warrior City were not as grand as the walls of Neverfall City, but they had their own style. Huge claw marks could be seen everywhere, clearly left by massive magical beasts. The residents of Warrior City, upon seeing the incoming army and its leader, immediately understood. The grand duel with the Beastmen was about to begin, and the entire city erupted into excitement.
The city of warriors erupted into excitement because of Ao He and his group's arrival. The arrival of the human dueling team also meant that the Beastmen's team would soon arrive as well. The grandest event of Warrior City was about to begin. Those who could survive in Warrior City all had violent, frenzied blood flowing through their veins. Fighting was their favorite activity. In this small city, you might find fugitives. Most of the vicious criminals who committed serious crimes and couldn't survive elsewhere would come here. This chaotic city suited them perfectly. The Beastmen and humans in Warrior City didn't show any displeasure despite the duel representing a potential war between their empires. Their boiling blood even made them eager to see the two sides clash. As Liu Feng and his group walked along, they saw countless races of all shapes and colors. Beastmen, dwarves, elves, goblins, even undead shamans. A variety of races and professions formed a completely different kind of city. On the streets, aside from some magic users, even those usually well-dressed now bared their arms, showing bodies full of scars. The women here wore only strips of leather and fur, barely covering key parts, leaving the rest exposed. Their smooth, slightly dark skin gave them a wild, exotic charm. Such bold attire made Nicholas Shu, who had received refined education, blush slightly as she muttered a quiet curse. Although many people along the streets stared greedily at Liu Feng's group, they were wise enough not to cause trouble. People in Warrior City loved fighting, but they weren't fools. Those selected from human nations to duel the Beastmen were certainly not weak. Within 100 meters, if anything unexpected happened, they would be instantly surrounded. Liu Feng watched the various races with great interest. It was his first time seeing such a complete display of the world's races. Even Sun Never Set City couldn't compare. Behind him, Al rode up and laughed loudly. Liu Feng nodded honestly. Ao He smiled while looking at the crowd inside. This city was originally just a temporary settlement built for the duel. After the first duel, we left it behind. When we came back the second time, a few people had already started building here. By the third time, there were too many people to count. And then, damn it. Along the way, Liu Fang quietly listened to Ao's stories about the city's history. After turning several streets, a luxurious courtyard appeared ahead. At the entrance stood more than a dozen strong guards on alert. On seeing Ao Hei, they hurried forward. "My lord Ao Hei, the courtyard has been cleaned and ready for residents." Ao Hei nodded in satisfaction and said to Liu Fang with a smile, "Before every duel, we stay here to rest and prepare." Liu Fang nodded in understanding. Since the beastmen hadn't arrived yet, Liu Fang and the others had some free time to explore Warrior City. After settling everything, Liu Fang greeted Ao Hei, grabbed Hong Yi, and headed out. But at the gate, 4 figures were already waiting. Seeing Lan San and the others grinning mischievously, along with Nicholas Shu leaning against a tree behind them, Liu Fang rolled his eyes helplessly. "What are you doing?" Lan San chuckled. "We're going too. You think only you can go out and look around? Might as well relax a bit before the big event." Liu Fang sighed. "Fine." Taking a little girl out alone, what are you planning?" Nicholas Shu's cold voice came from behind, filled with sarcasm. Liu Fang frowned, anger rising. "Don't start talking nonsense about guardianship or anything like that." At the same time, Hong Yi beside him slightly raised her head. Her blood-red eyes locked onto Nicholas Shu, a faint killing eye tenor leaking out. Nicholas Shu felt a chill on her skin and instinctively took a small step back, then quickly realized what she'd done, embarrassed at being intimidated by a little girl. Liu Fang gently squeezed Hong Yi's hand. She immediately withdrew her killing eye tenor and even playfully stuck out her tongue at him, looking completely different from moments before. Nicholas Shu was stunned. On the streets, chaos reigned supreme. Every short distance, another fight would break out. This reputation of Warrior City being chaotic truly lives up to its name, Liu Fang remarked after walking less than 1 street. Lan Sang leaned in with a grin. "More than half of the people here have killed at least 100 nobles and over 500 commoners." Liu Fang raised an eyebrow. Lan Sang shrugged. Liu Fang looked at the others, but no one gave an answer, so his gaze landed on Nicholas Shu. She snorted, about to act proud, but quickly spoke when Liu Fang lost interest. "There's an unwritten rule here. Once you enter Warrior City, your past doesn't matter anymore. You're a clean slate. Of course, if you break the rules, the Empire will come after you." Liu Fang nodded in understanding. Even a place like this still had its own rules. Violence truly defined Warrior City. After just 1 street, there had already been more than a dozen brutal fights. These weren't small scuffles, they were deadly clashes. The least injured person Liu Fang saw had 2 fingers chopped off, blood pouring from his head. Seeing Hong Yi watching calmly, with faint killing eye tenor in her eyes, Liu Fang shook his head. He tightened her grip on his hand and said seriously, "This is not something worth learning from." Hong Yu pursed her lips, but obediently looked away. "Let's go sit in that tavern." Seeing a tavern at the corner, Liu Fang walked towards it. Looking up at the sign, he couldn't help but laugh. Chaos Tavern? That's a bit too straightforward, isn't it? Behind him, Nicholas Shu chuckled. "The taverns in Warrior City are the craziest and most violent on the entire continent. Are you sure you want to go in?" "Oh, really? That actually makes me more interested." Liu Fang smiled. "Let's go see just how crazy it really is." Chaos Tavern. A tavern filled with violence. Inside it, anything could happen. Just as Liu Fang and his group pushed open the door, a powerful gust of force slammed toward them. Liu Fang slightly raised his eyelids, casually lifted his hand, and without any politeness, struck the incoming object flying back. Bang! The sound of something heavy crashing echoed for quite a while before it finally stopped. Only then did Liu Fang look up to see what had been thrown at him. It was a ball of flesh, though now it had been smashed into the wall by Liu Fang's strike and seemed to be stuck there. The people in the hall glanced at them briefly, then looked away and continued whatever they had been doing. A faint smile curled at Liu Fang's lips. Interesting tavern. He waved his hand and led the group toward the counter. In just a dozen steps, Liu Fang blocked 12 attacks aimed at his vital points.
As a result, 12 attackers were left rolling on the ground, groaning in pain. At the counter, a beautiful and seductive landlady blinked her charming eyes. In a soft, teasing voice, she said, "Hee hee, handsome boys, what would you like to drink?" Liu Feng sat in front of her and replied calmly, "Dragonborn wine. Do you have it?" The landlady covered her lips and laughed softly, her peach blossom eyes full of allure. "Are you sure you can handle that kind of strong liquor?" Liu Feng met her gaze with a slight smile. "I'm sure." The landlady glanced at the people behind him, smiled faintly, nodded, and turned her graceful body to prepare the drinks. Liu Feng narrowed his eyes slightly. From behind her tight dress, a fiery red tail swayed playfully, adding a wild charm to her already alluring figure. "A fox tribe from the Beastmen," Nicola Shu's voice came softly from behind. Liu Feng nodded with a smile and gestured for everyone to sit. Lan Shang and the others quickly obeyed, their eyes fixed on the red tail, earning them a fierce glare from Nicola Shu. The Chaos Tavern truly lived up to its name. Within minutes of entering, more than a dozen people had already been beaten bloody and thrown out. Fights here needed no reason, sometimes none at all. Hong Yi sat to Liu Feng's left, while Nicola Shu, another stunning beauty, sat on his right. This combination attracted greedy stares from many wolfmen in the hall, all directed at Liu Feng sitting between them. Liu Feng acted as if he didn't notice, lazily resting his chin on his hand. The fox landlady first served fruit wine to Lan Chang's group, then placed a large cup of rich and fragrant dragonborn wine in front of Liu Feng. He swirled the emerald liquid, then suddenly drank it all at one gulp without even changing expression. The landlady was surprised. Even dwarves who loved alcohol wouldn't dare drink it like that. "Landlady, are you from the fox tribe?" Liu Feng asked with a smile. She laughed charmingly, her eyes shimmering with seduction. "With a beautiful red tail like this, do you think any ordinary beastman could have it?" As she spoke, the red tail curled over her smooth shoulder. "Indeed, it's beautiful," Liu Feng praised. The landlady giggled, then glanced at the two beauties beside him. "Bringing such beautiful girls to a place like this isn't a good choice." Liu Feng smiled faintly. "Aren't you beautiful too? Why can you stay here but they can't?" Her eyes curved slightly as she twirled a strand of red hair. "Because they don't dare do anything to me." Liu Feng glanced at the restless crowd in the hall and said calmly, "I dislike trouble, but I'm not afraid of it. Besides, no one here is innocent. Killing them all wouldn't matter." His gentle smile carried a chilling, killing intent. The landlady froze for a moment, then laughed softly. "Oh, really? I'm looking forward to that. There are 2 6th-tier experts, 2 7th-tier beastmen, and dozens of others here." Liu Feng nodded slightly, then suddenly slammed his empty cup onto the counter and shouted coldly, "Boys, grab your weapons. Cripple these trash." Lan Shang and the others had long noticed the hostile crowd in the hall. At his command, weapons flashed into their hands as they charged forward like tigers into wolves. Liu Feng casually pulled a chair into his hand and followed with a cold smile, heading straight toward the strongest opponent, a 7th-tier wolfman. The wolfman, who had been staring lustfully at Nicola Shu, finally shifted his gaze and lunged at Liu Feng with 2 green glowing daggers. At the counter, the landlady chuckled and asked Hong Yi and Nicola Shu, "Aren't you worried about your little lover?" Nicola Shu blushed and snapped coldly, "Shut up!" Hong Yi calmly sipped her red fruit wine and said, "That wolf won't last." The landlady smiled. "He's a 7th-tier warrior. Even I would find him troublesome." Just then, boom! A loud crash echoed through the hall. The landlady turned in shock. The once arrogant wolfman was now pinned to the ground, with Liu Feng's foot pressing on his chest. His poisoned daggers were nowhere to be seen. Blood poured from his mouth as he glared viciously at Liu Feng. Liu Feng sneered. "Not convinced. Haven't gone berserk yet? Try again." He stepped back. The wolfman leaped up, wiped the blood, and roared. His body swelled, muscles bulging, veins writhing like snakes. Fur spread across his body, and his eyes turned blood red, radiating madness and killing intent. Feeling the surge of power, he laughed savagely. "I'll crush every bone in your body, then violate your women in front of you." Liu Fang's eyes turned icy. "You just lost your right to live." The wolfman lunged. Slash! His claws cast through Liu Fang's figure, but no blood appeared. It was an afterimage. Before he could react, a sharp pain pierced his back. He looked down in disbelief. A sword tip protruded from his chest, energy pulsing from it. Life drained from his eyes. His body collapsed heavily to the ground. Liu Fang flicked his great sword and it vanished. Without even looking at the corpse, he stepped over it and returned to the counter. With a smile, he said to the stunned landlady, "Thanks for the warning." He reached for his wine, only to find it empty. With a sigh, he grabbed Nicolas Schu's fruit wine and drank it in one gulp. Only then did Nicolas Schu realize she had just drunk from that cup moments ago. Her face flushed instantly red.